The railroad also runs alongside the northernmost point of Kennesaw. Sherman must confront Johnston's forces there if he is to maintain any control of the vital supply line for his men. And so it is, with Sherman's men in a semicircle around the eastern side of the mountain, while Johnston and his men wait to face off on the western. They are roughly 15 miles from Atlanta.
The whole country is one vast fort, and Johnston must have at least 50 miles of connected trenches and finished batteries. We gain ground daily, fighting all the time. Our lines are now in close contact, fighting incessant, with a good deal of artillery. As fast as we gain one position, the enemy has another already. Kennesaw is the key to the whole country.
Johnston's strategy has been to bring Sherman's army out and face off with the entrenched and fortified Confederate forces. It is the opposite of General John Bell Hood's philosophy. A proponent of aggressive attacks through attrition, Hood had been writing both Confederate President Davis and General Braxton Bragg to voice his displeasure towards Johnston's tactics, as Johnston would later learn. With the Union Army approaching Kennesaw Mountain, Johnston moves Hood's army to the left flank of the line from the extreme right to strengthen the line rather than lay in wait as an attack force. On June 20th, Hood is ordered to send Stevenson's division 3 miles from Marietta to be held in reserve. Hood also places the division of Hindman near Stevenson's. 2 days later, Hood receives word that Union forces are advancing. Eager for a fight, and with scant intelligence to back up his plans, Hood decides to attack and send Stevenson's troops towards Union forces. They stop around Mount Zion Church, and at about 2:30 encounter Union regiments who are pushed back by Confederate fire. Assuming they are merely a spearhead, Hood sends Stevenson and Hindman's forces after the Union soldiers. General Hood.
My impression is that there's a considerable force of infantry advancing in my front, but I have not yet felt them. And I have no means of judging except from the statements of the colonel commanded force from Hume's division, who was driven out from Cheney's before I came out. 2 regiments Federal cavalry have moved past my position on the road from Cheney's to Powder Springs. I gave notice of their move to General Armstrong and have just received a courier informing me that he is moving to meet them. If he attacks vigorously on that road, we shall compel the force at Cheney's to develop itself.
He sends them straight towards an entrenched Union line formed by Schofield's Army of the Ohio and Hooker's 20th Corps. Even as Confederate troops are initially driven back by the Union line, Hood sends them back in to attack. Darkness and Union reinforcements force Hood to retreat. He has lost around 1,000 men against Union losses of 350. Back at the Union camp, Sherman decides a full frontal assault is his only option, and on June 24th, makes plans for one 3 days later. The southernmost end of the Confederate lines are defended by Hood's regiment, with Hardee above him at the northernmost. Johnston is stationed further east in the town of Marietta. Schofield's Army of the Ohio moves slightly south. McPherson's Army of the Tennessee will feint towards the other end of the defenses and then attack further southwest of the target. It is Thomas's Army of the Cumberland that will push through with a major assault where Hood's army is the thinnest. He hopes to break the line and pour in. It is 8 a.m. on June 27th. Union cannons begin their bombardment of Kennesaw Mountain before moving in. The unforgiving terrain slows down Union soldiers trying to breach the thickets. The Confederates, meanwhile, await from their entrenchments, put on alert and made much more aware from the loud artillery. Thomas's army falls an hour behind schedule, yet still attempts to navigate the harsh vegetation to reach Hardee's corps. Two divisions, led by Brigadier Generals John Newton and Jefferson C. Davis, maintain a column rather than lines and face off against Major General Benjamin F. Cheatham and Patrick R. Claiborne's divisions. By advancing in column formation, they offer a singular target for the Confederate soldiers to fire upon, and they are quickly repulsed. Both Newton's brigades, under command of Brigadier Generals Wagner and Harker, failed to make it through. Davis's brigade, led by Colonel Daniel McCook, crosses over a creek to climb the hill and attack. Colonel Sam R. Watkins, Company H of the 1st Tennessee Regiment.
Talk about other battles, victories, shouts, cheers, and triumphs. But in comparison with this day's fight, all others dwarf into insignificance. The sun beaming down on our uncovered heads, the thermometer being 110 degrees in the shade, and a solid line of blazing fire right from the muzzles of the Yankee guns being poured right into our very faces, singeing our hair and clothes, the hot blood of our dead and wounded spurting on us, the blinding smoke and stifling atmosphere filling our eyes and mouths, and the awful concussion causing the blood to gush out of our noses and ears. And above all, the roar of battle made it a perfect pandemonium. Afterward, I heard a soldier express himself by saying that he thought hell had broke loose in Georgia. Sure enough.
Afterward, I heard a soldier express himself by saying that he thought hell had broke loose in Georgia. Sure enough. Lieutenant Colonel Allen L. Fonstock, 86th Illinois, Volunteer Infantry.
Near the top, we encountered the rebels in their strong works, in front of which were placed racks, stacked and wired together. Our men were compelled to break through these obstructions, but after running so far and receiving so galling a fire, in which Colonel McCook fell mortally wounded, many of them were spent. Captain Fellows rushed forward, calling to the men to follow, yelling, "Come on, boys, we will take it," and fell dead a few feet from the ditch.
Both sides dubbed this part of Cheatham's Hill the Dead Angle. General Sherman.
By 11:30, the assault was in fact over and had failed. We had not broken the rebel line at either point, but our assaulting columns held their ground within a few yards of the rebel trenches, and there covered themselves with parapet. McPherson lost about 500 men and several valuable officers, and Thomas lost nearly 2,000 men. This was the hardest fight of the campaign up to that date.
At one point, a forest fire starts in the middle of the firefight, burning wounded Union soldiers to death. One nameless Arkansas colonel runs out with a white flag and calls out to the Union forces, "Come and get your men, for they are burning to death." Colonel Watkins.
At all times, every hour of day and night, you could hear the shrieks and screams of the poor fellows who were left on the field, and a stench so sickening as to nauseate the whole of both armies arose from the decaying bodies of the dead left lying on the field.
The two sides put their fighting aside and, unarmed, dive in to save the wounded and helpless men. The colonel allegedly receives 2 ivory-handled Colt 45s the next day from a grateful Union commander. At battle's end, the Union has lost about 3,000 men, while the Confederacy 1,000. The sounds of the firefight are heard in nearby Atlanta, and many citizens begin to leave their homes in anticipation of the violence to come. Sherman, reeling from Kennesaw Mountain, opts to reach past Johnston's line and cut him off further, and place his forces between Johnston's men and Atlanta. Johnston, shrewdly, under cover of night, slips away to the Chattahoochee River before the 4th of July. Johnston is only at the river for a week before being forced to move his army further back to Atlanta. His men systematically burn all bridges behind them in hopes of slowing down the approaching Federal soldiers.
Thanks for watching. If you'd like to help us produce more compelling historical content like this, please like, comment below, and share this video with fellow history buffs. And of course, be sure to subscribe to help keep history happening.